The Rams are meeting with Matthew Stafford today. We've got the very latest on the Stafford situation. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, if you're listening to it on the podcast side, if you want to check out the video version, it's the fastest growing Rams YouTube channel. Join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and drop your comments down below. Do you think Matthew Stafford will be back with the Rams next season? My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. I do NFL radio for Westwood One. Today I'm flying solo. The People's Champ, Travis Rogers, will be back on Monday, but we've got so much to get into. Another jam-packed show, more twists and turns on the Matthew Stafford saga. We'll talk about the future of Stafford with the Rams. Is it looking better? Is it looking worse? But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. But let's get you caught up. Let's get right into it. There's so much new information about Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. So Matthew Stafford spent 4 years with the organization, won a Super Bowl in 2021. And just to get you caught up, if you're unaware of the current situation, well, the Rams need to rework his contract if they want him to continue his playing career with this organization. The contract is going to pay him more than the $27 million that he's owed this year, plus a $4 million guarantee in the next 2 years, right? That's not going to get it done. Last season, they reworked his deal that took away some of the future guaranteed money and put it into 2024. So he's essentially playing on a 1-year, $40 million contract, knowing that if he was going to be back here, that the two sides would have to get back to the negotiating table. So that is where they are at. Now, the big update is the Rams and Matthew Stafford are meeting today, Friday. This is according to The Athletic. They've been discussing a contract for weeks, but this is the first time they'll be in person in Los Angeles, and that could lead to a final decision between Matthew Stafford's side and the Rams side. So they are meeting face-to-face, so we are going to learn a lot about the likelihood he's going to return, or if they're going to actually have to pull the trigger on a trade. Now, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, they've had, quote, a lot of conversations in the last 24 hours. This is according to NFL Network's Peter Schrager. And there's just been a lot of conversations. And this is not through Jimmy Sexton, his agent. No, this is face-to-face. They've been talking directly, and they're expected to have more conversations on Friday. Peter Schrager says that the more Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford talk, the more likely it is that he stays in Los Angeles. But he might need to take a little less money to stay with the Rams if he wants to continue that partnership with Sean McVay, the wonderkind, the precocious super coach, the most valuable coach in the NFL. So you can get more money with the Raiders and the Giants potentially, but it's a better situation for you. You don't have to uproot your family. You were 14 yards away from an NFC Championship game appearance against a rookie quarterback, and you're comfortable here. You don't want to change teams, do you? Do you really want to? Now, the Giants, they've been a team that's been mentioned about with Matthew Stafford for a couple weeks now. Malik Neighbors had some tweets where he tweeted out an emoji of a ram in number 9. He even had one with Cooper Kupp in number 10. Well, right now, it's looking like the Giants are big underdogs, and it's becoming increasingly unlikely that he is going to be going to New York. This is according to ESPN's Jordan Raanan, who said in the last 24 hours that the prevailing thought around the league is that the Giants are big underdogs in the Stafford sweepstakes. Now, and the other team you have to worry about is the Raiders. The Raiders is the team. And like I told you yesterday, based on my sources, what I've heard is if he's going to leave, it's going to be for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's as simple as that. And the Raiders and Stafford, they have come to a, quote, common ground when it comes to a potential contract as far as the framework and the skeleton of a new deal. And that contract is probably one that pays him around $55 million a year. And the New York Post was reporting that the Giants were in on Stafford for $55 million a year, possibly fewer years than it was originally thought, maybe a 2-year deal with $55 million per year, which is a $15 million raise in the $40 million that he took home last season. But the buzz is that you're looking at an APY of $55 million for Matthew Stafford. So the Raiders and the Giants, those are both teams that have been discussed most, and they're both in line with his asking price. $100+ million for 2 years. So, I mean, that is a good amount of money for a 37-year-old quarterback. This is from Art Stapleton, who tweeted, "I'm hearing the Giants are also in line in terms of contract parameters with Matthew Stafford's representatives per sources, just as the Raiders have. Woke up yesterday with momentum seemingly building towards Raiders, but late last night started to get the feeling that a return to Rams, which seemed the most logical, was right there. Sounds like a Stafford deal could approach $100 million over 2 years." So that's where they're at from that standpoint. Raiders, Giants, willing to pay big, willing to give Matthew Stafford more than the Rams are trying to give Matthew Stafford, but he's going to have to make a decision. And then early this morning, Ian Rappaport, he went on NFL Network, and he talked about the Stafford situation, and he said that, quote, "it feels more likely that he stays in Los Angeles." Rappaport tweeted, "A Matthew Stafford decision looms, and his return to the Rams feels more likely to those involved. Nothing final, but clearly more likely than a few days ago when it appeared he was set to leave." So, look, it's going to come down to whether Matthew Stafford is going to be willing to accept a little less money to stay with the Rams than taking a bigger payday to join a team that has big question marks, a team that is trying to become contenders, trying to go through a rebuild, trying to use him as their big step forward. If I'm Matthew Stafford, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense whatsoever if your number one priority is winning, is competing for a Super Bowl, is trying to hoist one more Lombardi trophy before you hang them up. The Raiders are the Raiders. The Raiders are the team that just has not figured things out from an ownership standpoint and a roster build standpoint. Yes, they have some high-level talent, but if you look at the depth of that roster, it's not quite there. Yes, you do have $100 million in cap space. You're playing inside a domed area, controlled environment, field turf, and that's what you're familiar with in your two teams that you played for. But to me, the risk just way outweighs the reward. The Rams have stability. The Rams are proof of concept when it comes to winning a title. That has to be the number one priority for Matthew Stafford. But we're going to continue to break down the Stafford situation. We get any news on this, we're going to go live, go drop a video right away. But it looks like we will be getting a decision pretty imminently, within the next week at the very least. Who knows? Maybe we can hear something by today. But we're going to continue to break down the Stafford situation. We'll talk about some other options too. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And even if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm betting my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the podcast, subscribe, write a review. Would really, really appreciate that. This Rams team is never lacking storylines, and this offseason is going to be very exciting with free agency and the draft. And, hey, the Matthew Stafford story is the biggest story in the NFL right now. But let's get back into it. So Diana Rossini, she tweeted out, the Rams are set to meet with Matthew Stafford at their facility in person today regarding his future. Per sources, the Raiders and Giants have discussed a 2-year contract for Stafford that includes $90 to $100 million guarantee. A decision is expected soon. So it's unclear if the meeting that the Rams are going to have with Stafford is to discuss the final details of a new contract, or to say their goodbyes, or to agree that a trade is going to be imminent. But look, it's an in-person conversation. This is something that you should feel encouraged by if you want to see Stafford back with this organization, leading this team for the next couple of seasons, because we've heard that Tom Brady has met with Matthew Stafford in person, whether it was at his house in Montana, they went skiing together, or was a casual run-in. We still don't know. There's been conflicting reports about that. But I think that what my takeaway in just the new details is that if we're looking at a 2-year deal, I mean, I always say there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, but a 2-year deal, even at a top-of-the-market valuation, it's not going to break your franchise. And I think if you are the Rams, you have to view this kind of like you viewed that divisional round loss. You're on the 14-yard line. Let's get into the end zone. You're in the red zone already. You got your guy, man. It's not a lot of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. There's just really not. It's not 10 of these dudes on the planet tops that you can really trust to win a Super Bowl. And it comes down to, I think this is really going to say a lot about how the Rams feel about their current collection of talent. It's going to say a lot about how the Rams feel about their young players. Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Jordan Whittington. The list goes on and on. If you really feel confident that this young core, this young nucleus, is going to realize that potential that you expect them to, then you should take that veteran in Matthew Stafford and realize that, because this is the reverse of what we've seen as the prevailing wisdom, the prevailing logic in the National Football League, where it's, oh, let's draft their quarterback. Hopefully we hit on him. And when we do, we'll use the money that we're not paying him because he's on his rookie contract on getting the elite edge rusher, on getting the elite D-tack, on getting the elite wide receiver. You don't have to pay Jared Verse $30 million. You don't have to pay Kobe Turner $25 million. You don't have to pay Puka Nacua $25, $30 million. You already have those guys. So I think that's why this makes all the sense in the world. That's why I've always held true that bringing back Matthew Stafford is still what's best for this organization. Yeah, could things be interesting with Aaron Rodgers and potentially Devontae Adams? It could, for sure. But is there anyone out there that's willing to say they'd rather have a 41, 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers who has been a drama-filled quarterback that has rubbed some locker rooms the wrong way, that has rubbed some organizations the wrong way, versus a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford that comes in, works his butt off, continues to play even when he's banged up? No, Stafford's our guy. Aaron Rodgers is a big wild card. I wouldn't be mad. I think it'd be fun and interesting. And I mean, I think it'd be better than staying with Jimmy Garoppolo or going with a Sam Darnold or Justin Fields, one of these bridge quarterbacks. Look, I mean, a lot of times you kind of are what you are. I mean, yes, last year with Sam Darnold, that was an exception. That was an aberration. And even towards the end, it felt like Cinderella turned into a pumpkin, right? I mean, guys kind of are what they are, and what Matthew Stafford has been in this league has been an elite quarterback for over a decade's time. So I think that's what it comes down. I mean, you look at the compensation they would get in a potential trade. The Raiders and the Giants, they both have top 6 picks. The Raiders, they have their number 6 pick. The Giants, they have the number 3 pick. I mean, would they really be willing to give up one of those picks for Matthew Stafford? Would it be a future first-round pick in 2026? Could it be a conditional first-round pick? Or is it going to be a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick, something in that? But look, I mean, there's no guarantee those picks are going to work out. There's no guarantee that you're going to hit on that guy. In this draft, there's no quarterback that blows you away. The guys in this draft, the Jador Sanders, the Cam Wards, talented guys. This was last year's draft. They'd be lucky to be picked in the first round. They'd be second-round picks. I mean, that's just the way that these guys are grading out. Not bad for sure. I mean, I think they definitely have some potential, but I'm really, really encouraged by the fact that Matthew Stafford is going to be meeting with Sean McVay in the organization. And Sean McVay did have some comments about Matthew Stafford on Witt's new podcast with the Fitz and Witt podcast. He said about Matthew Stafford and the ongoing talks, quote, "When we had these conversations prior to the Super Bowl, I think the important thing is let's be clear, open, and honest. Don't want to have anything in secret. Want to make sure that we're all abreast of the situation, even though the first goal in mind is to have you come back here as the quarterback, but that's where we are really trying to measure all those things. He and I have had dialogue throughout the process and know where we want it to be able to end up. But these decisions aren't made in a vacuum, and that's kind of the challenging part of it." So, yeah, look, I mean, that's Sean McVay saying that this is a process, saying that you're not just going to take the first offer you get. You're going to want to see what your value is. And I think, too, I mean, look, if Matthew Stafford's kind of one of those things where it's, you break up with a girl kind of, or you guys, you take a little break and she goes on a couple dates and she kind of realized what she's gotten you. Maybe that's where Matthew Stafford's at right now. Saw what the Raiders are like, and there's probably tons of promises with Pete Carroll and Tom Brady and Chip Kelly and Mark Davis, the Raider Nation, just overall mystique, and then the Giants, your brother-in-law working for them, and the New York market and everything like that. But then he's like, man, I don't know. These guys, they're not the Rams. They're not Sean McVay. They're not Les Snead. So I think that if I'm the Rams, I feel so good about where my organization is, the culture that you've built, the ownership group that you have that's as deep-pocketed and as committed to winning as any team in the sport. They're out there saying, hey, go out there, see what else is out there. Grass isn't always greener, right? The grass is greener at SoFi Stadium. The field turf is greener at SoFi Stadium. So I think from the Rams standpoint, they got to feel good about that. But coming up next, more on the Matthew Stafford saga. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday and sometimes on the weekends. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, another reminder, just past 16,000 subscribers. If you're new to the channel, we really appreciate you. Join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and hit the like button on all your takes on all things Rams football. We're going to start featuring them on a weekly mailbag episode, so be sure to drop some comments down below. Use that hashtag Ramley so I can find them easily. But to definitely do that. So have a little fun. I know it's very nauseating. It's mind-numbing. The Rams are the talk of the National Football League. You just are kind of sick of it at this point. Will he go? Will he stay? Will he or won't he? Who will be the next quarterback? I know it's a lot. But how about the fact that this story has gotten so big that it has forced some of these NFL insiders to crash out a little bit? And Jordan Schultz, Fox insider, there's a report from NBC Sports that he verbally accosted Ian Rappaport at a Starbucks in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. This is from the report, says the scouting combine brings the entire NFL community together for better and for worse. Per multiple sources who witnessed the interaction, Jordan Schultz of Fox and Ian Rappaport of NFL Media engaged in a verbal altercation on Wednesday afternoon at the Starbucks at the JW Marriott in Indianapolis. Schultz, we are told, accosted Rappaport. The incident first came to widespread light when PFT commentator Eric Schoenberg, a.k.a. the twin brother late Eric Solenberger, posted a tweet on Wednesday night that referred to a serious big-time media confrontation between two NFL newsbreakers. The tweet sparked much speculation in an effort to get to the bottom of the situation. So there's a picture that Adam Schefter posted of a Starbucks logo in Indianapolis. It says Indianapolis, head on a swivel, and they are investigating the matter. League sources have confirmed that security personnel are investigating Schultz and the Rappaport incident. Says, as explained last night, Schultz accosted Rappaport. Accusations were made. Security was alerted. The league has no direct authority over Schultz. That said, he could be refused credentials to league events. And since Fox is a broadcast partner, the league could complain to Fox about the situation. So there is legitimate insider beef going on because of this incident. Jordan Schultz, he was the guy that tweeted out about Brady and saying that they met in Montana and that they spent time together. They went skiing and that he's been actively recruiting him. And then in Rappaport, he came back and said that the meeting was unplanned, that it was not extensive or in-depth, and it did not include Brady hosting or recruiting Stafford, despite reports saying otherwise. So this is definitely a Ohtani's on a plane to Toronto level, like what the heck happened. But Ian Rappaport did go on the Pat McAfee show and touched on the Starbucks incident. He said, here's the whole thing that I wrote last night. It's been our most viewed story of the week by far, and it's the rare nugget that rises above the lather, rinse, repeat and typical scouting combine scuttlebutt. As my wife asked last night, why does anyone care about this? The answer is both simple and complex. They just do. So he talked a little bit about it. But, yeah, that's where we're at right now. I mean, you got all these people kind of beefing, but we'll see what happens with this situation. I think that where the Rams are at right now, you got to find a way to get a deal done because it's just, I'm not ready to close the book on this era of Rams football. Just not right now. Not with the way that we've seen Matthew Stafford play when it matters most. You could go a long, long time without finding a Super Bowl contending quarterback. I know some people think that because of the money situation. No, look, guys always want to get their worth and get their value. And yes, he's made a ton of money in his career. I mean, just look at Tom Brady. I mean, he was married to Giselle, so he took a lot less money to put talent around him. I think that you can find a happy medium for both. Get him in the $50 million range. Get him back to the Rams. Get another playmaker. The Rams are interested in some of the tight ends. We'll talk about that. I'm going to actually do a weekend episode about some draft stuff. And then you're going to be in a much better spot to continue what you've built for the last couple of seasons. I mean, you do not want to, if you're the Rams, hit that reset button yet. Can you imagine? I mean, think about how this feels. Think about how this feels to be the talk of the NFL. I don't know. Maybe you don't like it. I do. I think it's cool. I think it's cool that the Rams are the lead story in all of these talk shows around the country. All these football shows have their eyes and their focus on the Los Angeles Rams. It keeps them relevant. It helps their brand. So imagine if the flip side was Jimmy Garoppolo is your quarterback. Come on, man. Jimmy Garoppolo. The Rams always need to strive for, okay, the ceiling is Super Bowl. The ceiling is not Super Bowl championship with Jimmy Garoppolo. The ceiling is not Super Bowl championship with Justin Fields. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers has a dream season and it's vintage Rodgers, I don't know. If I were him, I would want my money back from that darkness retreat, right? But if things did turn around for him, then maybe you could hit lightning in a bottle for one season, but it's unlikely. And the truth is, Matthew Stafford has done more with less in the last couple of seasons. You've got an aging tight end in Tyler Higbee. You had a declining Cooper Kupp. Your best receiver was your fourth pick in the 5th round. Let's not act like he has these elite weapons around him. Kyren Williams is great in his role. Not an explosive back like a Saquon Barkley type or someone like that. So he's really made the most with not the best weapons in the sport. I think a part of these negotiations, if I'm Matthew Stafford, and I would expect this if a deal gets done, is you are going to see them aggressively pursue another playmaker. Last draft, they were interested. I can tell you this from sources. They were interested in trading up for Rome Odunze. You guys already know they wanted Brock Bowers. They wanted Mike Evans. They have been in pursuit actively for the last couple seasons about adding another offensive weapon. They just haven't been able to land the guy that they wanted. They are attempting to do that. So bring Stafford back, win another Super Bowl, go to the Hall of Fame, get a statue outside of SoFi, go down as the best quarterback in franchise history with the bullet and have that as your legacy for a long time. That's another thing if I'm Matthew Stafford too. I'm saying, hey, if I stay here with the Rams, there could be a lot of guys after me. I'm going to still be Mr. Rams behind the quarterback position. I think that is meaningful. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And have a nice weekend. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.